How can I stop judging people? Posted on June 10th, 2011. The human mind has the ability to prefer, and hence the capacity to like or dislike. It's the function of the human mind to have preferences, thus allowing a platform for expansion and improvement. Without the human mind desiring for better conditions, there would be no avenue for expansion. By its very nature, the mind is designed to see contrast in its environment, and based on its conditioning, natural and acquired, comes to new preferences, thus launching an expansion in life. So the human mind is here for a purpose. A deep appreciation for the mind arises when one is no longer identified with it. As long as you take your mind to be personal, you'll always judge its preferences and thus resist its movement. A human mind is bound to judge and prefer because this is its function. Only when you're identified with the mind and take it to be personal do you judge the judging mind. When you're free of your mind, you allow the mind to judge and prefer, and thus allow it the freedom to do the job it's meant to do. Why are you judging your mind? The mind is like a programmed machine, and it has an inherent purpose here. It's meant to prefer and have choices. The mind will judge its environment, look at the contrast, and come to new preferences based on its perspective. This is the natural movement of a human mind. The question is, who has a problem with the mind? Consciousness, when it identifies with the mind, makes it personal and thus judges the judging mind. Who you are is consciousness. You're not the mind. The mind is like a machine doing its job. You are the witness of this machine. You can watch it functioning. But when you identify with this machine and make it personal, you start judging the movement of the mind. This creates suffering because you not only resist the mind's movement, but you also judge yourself and feel limited about yourself. Once you disidentify with the mind, you will no longer have a problem with it. You will allow the mind full freedom to have its natural movement. Remember that the mind is designed to judge and prefer, and that's its natural functioning. People who try to suppress the natural movement of their mind are usually the ones who end up feeling confused and self-critical. Nothing is personal because you are everything. Think about it this way. Everything is a manifestation of the one consciousness that you are. So in essence, everything is you. So who's judging whom? It's just a play of life. Existence having fun with itself. It's not serious stuff. It's all just a dance of life. Only when consciousness forgets this truth does it suffer, because it then takes the mind seriously. Let the mind move the way it wants to move. The natural expression of the mind is never a problem. All problems arise when you judge the mind, when you try to suppress the mind, or take your mind personally. It's a human mind. It's not you. It's not personal. Let the mind be. Don't identify with it. Just like you don't get an identity from the way your computer functions, you don't need to get an identity from the way the mind functions. Each mind is unique in its makeup, and by its nature is designed to see contrast, judge, and prefer. Stop judging your mind. So the question is not how do I stop judging people? The deeper question is why am I judging my mind? At the root, the problem is that you're identified with the mind, and you take it to be who you are. Awakening is simply to realize that you are not the mind. When you're fully awake, you no longer take the mind seriously, and you allow it the freedom to do what it wants to do. There is a deeper wisdom at play when you're no longer identified with the mind. You're no longer a reactive being. Your constant practice should be to watch the mind impersonally. Know that it's not you. With time, you'll be able to see clearly that the mind is not personal, and you will no longer judge it or judge yourself. When you stop judging your mind, you no longer judge other minds as well. It's not the mind that has to stop judging. It's you who has to stop the judging. You being the mind-identified consciousness. Wake up and stop being identified with the mind. Know that you are the one eternal life, pure consciousness itself.